your voice is powerful and your message matters. And Gemini is that energy that you need to find your voice and speak up for what's right in your business. Welcome to the Savvy Luminary Podcast, Astrology for Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Leslie Tagorda, creator of the Astrobrand Method, business astrologer, brand designer, author, and Aquarius boss woman. I help visionary spiritual entrepreneurs and impact makers like you illuminate and amplify your unique star powers so you can be the luminary you were born to be. So, hello, Luminary. This episode is all about Gemini energy and how we are meant to use it in our business and our brand. Everyone has Gemini somewhere in our chart, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So, you definitely have Mercury in your chart. So, yes, you are meant to use your voice to gain understanding, to get curious, and to speak up for your truth in your business and your brand. So let's dive in because I have a lot of information to share today. And in true Gemini fashion, I want you to know all the things, but I'm going to do my best to not overwhelm you with information, but allow you to get really curious to find out how you're meant to use your voice in your business and your brand in practical ways. So take what you need, leave the rest so that we can get clear, find that understanding, and lead with curiosity using Gemini. So we're still in the middle of Mercury retrograde, and I might have been sharing with you that part of my Mercury retrograde work that I'm doing in my business is that I am redoing a bunch of my Astrobrand training programs where I'm teaching others how to use the Astrobrand in their business. And part of that redoing this work is working with an instructional designer who's helping me really set the foundational methodology of this coursework, meaning why I'm doing this, what can others experience, what will they expect, how am I going to bring them through the learning process, which for an Astro brand, thinking about our identity, how we show up in our business is a big shift. And so there's big transformations that are going to happen. So I really needed this support. And it's so interesting that in true astrological fashion, when I'm in the season when we are all in the season, so right now we are in Gemini season, all of these Gemini topics start coming up. So I really reduced my one-on-one Astrobrand sessions just so that I could have space to redo my training and work on some other things before I take a little bit of time off. But I still have Astrobrand sessions here and there. And I'm not, it's not like a surprise, like, oh my gosh, this is so unexpected, but I'm always surprised that it's so confirming because I keep on getting clients that are right now having Gemini issues. So last week, I was speaking with a woman a very, very successful woman who has a Gemini moon, and how we're really unpacking that Gemini moon and looking at all of the stories that her family gave her, that her voice didn't matter, or that she didn't need to be smart, or kind of focusing things down on her intellect, like that wasn't a priority for them, and how she felt really misunderstood. And then today, when I was working with my instructional developer, I wanted to kind of give her a sample of what I'm creating. So I did a little mini reading for her and noticed that she also had Gemini and Chiron, or Chiron rather, in Gemini, and unpacking what that meant for her, with Chiron being our wounds, kind of those primal wounds, those experiences that we get when we're young that really shape how we live our lives today. And I was asking her about her experience with her Gemini, Chiron and Gemini. And she shared something very similar, that when she was young, even though she was super smart and super inquisitive, she was constantly being kind of reprimanded for asking too many questions, for wanting to put the pieces together and really kind of challenging the teachers. And so how she now takes that into her business. So it's really interesting to see all of these Gemini themes come up. The shadows of Gemini that we're meant to heal, meaning that to find that our voice is powerful, that we are allowed and it's safe to be smart, that it's safe to be curious, that it's safe to share information, that it's safe to feed our minds and gain knowledge. But then where do we go off where that fine balance, where now we're only looking for information? So today I want to kind of explore that, finding our voice and finding our message using Gemini in our businesses and brands. So two things before I dive into all things Gemini. First thing, I wanted to remind you that we have our upcoming new moon solar eclipse at Gemini of 19 degrees on Thursday, June 10th. And the following day, Friday, June 11th, I'll be hosting a new moon ceremony with my friend Dr. Sveta Chawla. And during this new moon eclipse ceremony, what we're going to be really focusing on is all of those old stories and wounds about that our voice doesn't matter. That's the whole eclipse. What do we need to let go? Those Gemini shadows. And then we're going to be able to look at how we want to now reconnect to our truth, all of the learnings that we've learned during Mercury Retrograde this time in Gemini, and then how we pass that forward to create our powerful message based on shared truth with our communities. That's reflected in the stars with the Mercury retrograde conjoining this new moon eclipse. And then how do we then take that to the next level to empower our voice that calls in our people to take action with you? And that's really leaning onto that Jupiter in Pisces energy. So all of this during our new moon eclipse ceremony. So if you're interested in finding your voice and letting go of all of those shadows that your voice doesn't matter during this eclipse, please join us. Everybody that signs up gets access to the live session and replay, as well as the Gemini new moon worksheets. And if you pay $47 or more, you get your new moon activation mini reading from me. So head on over to thesavvyluminary.com/new moon to join us for this new moon solar eclipse in Gemini ceremony. Whew, that's a mouthful. So we have a lot to plant today with all of this Gemini energy. So to ground us in all of things Gemini, I want to share a mantra for today. If you are able to plant your feet on the ground and to find a little bit of stillness, I invite you to do that. I invite you to sit with your spine straight and get your crown of your head reaching for the heavens, and take a deep cleansing breath. And please repeat this mantra after me. My voice is powerful. My message matters. And let's ground that in a second time. Please repeat after me. My voice is powerful. My message matters. Beautiful. Now let's talk about all things Gemini. So today I really want to cover with you the Gemini archetype, what it is in our business, the energy that you need to bring in your business by unlocking that Gemini energy, why it's so important, and what happens when you don't use it to its highest elevation. And then I'm going to be giving you ways to unlock your Gemini in your brand to find your voice by looking at Gemini by the house as well as Mercury. Woohoo! So lots of information. So as I started off with this episode, Gemini and Scorpio are two of the most judged signs of the zodiac. And why is that? We hear all the shadow things about Gemini, about how it's too chatty and it's so gossipy and it's always changing its mind and you can't trust the Gemini. And like, oh my gosh, it drives me insane hearing all of these things, all these shadow zones of the Gemini. But so Gemini is an air sign, meaning that it's intellectual, it loves information, and it loves connecting and socializing, primarily socializing over shared interests. That's why it's so chatty. And this whole idea of gossip, that is total bull. That is the patriarchy's way of saying, hey, women, don't talk about things, don't share information because you're better off not knowing. What a crock of poop. And so the air part of Gemini, again, is the intellect and the mindset and the thirst for knowledge and the thirst for sharing knowledge, of getting curious about understanding and engaging in dialogue. And then Gemini is also a mutable sign. So the mutable signs like Pisces and Virgo and Sagittarius and Gemini, it's a mutable air. So the mutable signs are shape shifting. They can hold space for the yes and this and this and this. And so that's why sometimes people think that Gemini is always changing its mind. It's not that it's changing its mind, but it's changing its perspective. It's gaining more information so that it can see a different point of view now. And that's what makes Gemini so great. And so, of course, a Gemini can, handle and be juggling many things at once, but then it has to really focus. That's really hard for a Gemini, on being able to strategize and prioritize and get to what is your truth. Now, on the other side of the Gemini, at the polarity, we have Sagittarius, where this polarity between Sagittarius and Gemini is all about information. But then Sagittarius wants the meaning of that information. So you might have heard in your studies about, okay, there's one thing about gaining information, but then there's the next thing about synthesizing that information and gaining knowledge. And now Sagittarius wants to take it to that next level. Well, what does that knowledge mean? How is everything connected? What is the philosophy? What is the vision? So when we're thinking about Gemini and Sagittarius, they live on the education axis. So we're constantly going between information, knowing, and meaning, and back and forth and back and forth. And ultimately, this helps us find our truth. In traditional astrology, of course, Gemini represents our hands, the things that we do with our hands. Our hands are always busy. Maybe for you, understanding things, you're doodling or knitting or drawing or painting. For me, when I'm when I'm sitting on workshops or having to learn a lot of information, I'm either writing notes or I'm painting my nails, something like that. I have to also have my hands busy. And in traditional astrology, Gemini rules the twins. But the twins, in one way, is this ability to hold the yes and, but Gemini is more than just binary. It's not just yes and, it's this and this and this and this and this and this. So it's really about holding a diverse perspective, understanding everything. Gemini, of course, is ruled by Mercury. Both Virgo and Gemini hold that planet, where Mercury is purely the way that we receive information, the input, the understanding of information, as well as how we express our information. So it's all about communications. Now, one of the things that I was taught from my business mentor, Milada Sachik, about Mercury is that Mercury is purely our device. It doesn't really have a consciousness of its own. And that's why sometimes Mercury is called the messenger, because it's the messenger to our soul, our sun's consciousness. And so again, Mercury is just the device, and Mercury by sign, we'll talk about that in a little bit, is the kind of device that you have. And so at the highest level of Gemini, it is to be curious, to stretch into that place of understanding. And understanding and engaging isn't just about talking and sharing and conversing, but it's also about listening. It's also about being versatile and adapting and having just lots of variations. And with the Gemini shadow, we're trying to move away from getting stuck in this place of indecisiveness because of all of those options, overthinking things, over information, fake news, overwhelm, all of those low vibration qualities of Gemini that I'm sure you're very familiar with. So, in our businesses and our brands, Gemini gives us the power to, first of all, understand your own truth. And understanding your own truth is definitely by gaining as much information through your Mercury device. And then that second step of understanding is now understanding the other's truth and finding common ground. That common ground is that shared information that Gemini wants to communicate with. Gemini here is not about persuading others to think in your way. You can leave that over to Sagittarius or Scorpio or some of the other signs. Gemini is here to share information with like-minded people who already believe in what you believe in. And because Gemini is about sharing information and it may have such a big message, the challenge of Gemini is to be clear, to be concise, to also then give voice and understanding to call people into action based over shared information. And of course, Gemini rules the third house. So if you look at your natal chart, we're looking at the third house, and the third house in our business is about community, communications, teaching, speaking, writing, sharing information. And in traditional astrology, of course, these could be our siblings or the people that are closest to us in our communities. Now, we all need Gemini in our business. It is so important because, first of all, like I was saying earlier, you have to understand your truth. Especially during this Mercury retrograde, all of us are coming to some aha moments about what we thought was true isn't necessarily true now. And so you can see how that even this truth evolves and lives on a spectrum that shifts. So of course we need Gemini because Gemini can go with the flow. And we need the Gemini energy to create a crystal clear, cohesive, concise, succinct message. Because one of the things about Gemini and its thirst for knowledge is that it can go overboard and overshare and overwhelm with all of the information. I'm still taking that medicine here because there is so much information that I want you to know that sometimes I have a hard time cutting it off. I remember I was teaching my Astro Brand method about a year ago. And one of the feedback I got from somebody, she was saying, I want to go to a nice cafe and try a flight of wine and taste the best of the best. And then here you come, Leslie, you're giving me the whole box or the whole cask of wine. So how do I'm still learning, and how do I just provide you with exactly what you need instead of giving you everything, but I want you to know everything. Gemini is that energy in our business where we gain understanding about others, because of course our business isn't just about us, but it's about serving others. It's about getting curious with what other people need, getting curious about understanding where they are really at versus how we see them, but gaining understanding in terms of what are they looking for. Oftentimes we hear, we can see something in somebody and say, oh, well, they need this. And we start talking about all the things that they need. But that person doesn't think that they need that. And so coming into that common ground of understanding what they need and meeting them halfway is a Gemini superpower. And of course, that ability to create relationships on social media or in your writing or your speaking or your teaching, that ability to engage and create dialogue and be witty, that is why we need Gemini in our business. Now, of course, there are so many instances when we're not using our Gemini superpowers, and part of that's systemic. Right. So part of it is that we have been taught the shadows of Gemini, especially if you are a woman in Western cultures. So many of us have been taught to not be too smart. I remember when I was maybe a kindergartner and I learned how to read pretty early, and I was zipping through all of the reading materials and talking about all these things. And the teachers would tell my mom to tell me to not let other people know how smart I was because it was making others feel bad. And I imagine that there are a number of you listening right now who've also experienced this, that it wasn't safe to be too smart. And then this idea, especially now with this information age, one of the things that we've been taught in this information age and this 24-hour news cycle, and social media, and are things censored? Are things not being censored? Are we only getting fed news and information that's in our bubble? How do you know what is true? How do you know when it's too much? And when do you say stop? When do you like turn off the scroll and turn off the news and start listening and trusting in your own truth versus this need to keep on gaining information? And of course, that's systemized. This is the system that we live in, that we've been taught to not trust ourselves and just buy all the information, gain more information. Then once you have all the information, what are you doing with the information? Are you just sitting on courses and content? Do you feel obligated to complete everything and then feel guilty if there's things that are just not hitting home with you? Oh my gosh. I'm sharing all these experiences because I have fallen into each and every bucket. So, as we are examining all of these shadows of Gemini, I want you to really see where you've been fed the be smart, but not too smart. Be curious, but don't challenge the status quo. Be understanding, but make sure you're only understanding I'm using air quotes here, the right side. And engage in dialogue, but only to persuade others to the right side. Again, those are all shadow versions of Gemini. But reality, when we turn those things around, understanding and being heard is our spiritual birthright. Having a big message is what we're here to do, to share that message, to use our voice and making it clear and concise so that we understand ourselves, so that we understand others, so that we don't just provide information and overwhelm others, but actually speak our truths and allow ourselves to change our mind. Imagine how you would feel if you've given yourself all of this understanding. So let's take a look at how do we unlock Gemini in our business and our brands. So first of all, you have a strong Gemini brand if you have your sun, moon, or rising in Gemini, or if you have Mercury on your rising sign in your first house or on your midheaven in the 10th house. And so I'll go through all of the details of that in just a bit. A few strong Gemini brands that you can think of that I can think of right off the top of my head. Well, I am a Gemini rising, and I also have Mercury in Pisces, though, at the midheaven. So I would say that my brand, the Savvy Luminary and New Moon Creative, is very Gemini heavy. If we think of Twitter and Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, he has Gemini at the midheaven. He's delivering on creating a platform for sharing information. And then we have our beautiful vice president, Kamala Harris, and she has a Gemini rising. So she has a big message to share. Now, do you have any Geminis by planet? Because this is going to add to your business brand. This is the energy that you have to be curious, to gain understanding, to share knowledge, and to engage in dialogue. This is your gift that you must use with responsibility. So, for all you Gemini Sun people, happy solar return. You are a creative force of curiosity, words, and information. If you have your Gemini moon, you need mental, emotional security to be heard and understood. And when we understand our emotional security, this can tell us what success and recognition means to us. So if you have a Gemini moon, success means to you being understood. How freeing is that? Again, if you're Gemini rising, then you are here to lead by asking questions. If you have Gemini and Mercury, you have a superpowered Mercury, and you communicate with witty language, spoken and written. If you have Gemini and Venus, you attract and appreciate knowledge and knowledgeable people. If you have Gemini and Mars, you are driven by curiosity and learning all that you can. If you have Gemini Jupiter, you expand on your diverse interests and explore your mind. If you have Gemini and Saturn, you sustain and preserve your thoughts with a focus on mindset mastery. If you have Gemini and Uranus, then you are a boomer and you are here to revolutionize and think differently, to break outside of the box. And that was really hard for a lot of boomers when the conformity was still of a big value. If you have Chiron in Gemini, you recognize your deep intellectual wounds, and now you share what you have overcome in your offerings. If you have your North Node in Gemini, you stretch into curiosity by gaining truth. And if you have your South Node in Gemini, like me, you fall back on what you know and your intellect, but please don't get stuck there. So both Neptune and Pluto in Gemini, that was way back in the early 20th century. If you are a listener and you happen to have Neptune or Pluto in Gemini, please reach out to me. I would love to gift you an Astro Brand reading. Now, even if you don't have Gemini at the Sun, Moon rising, or Mercury on the rising or your midheaven, you have Gemini somewhere on your house cusp. And this is the area of your business where you are meant to share information, gain understanding, engage in dialogue. So even if you don't have planets in Gemini, you have Gemini by house somewhere in your chart. And wherever you have Gemini on the house cusp is the area of your business where you are meant to share information, gain understanding, engage in dialogue, and teach. So if you are a Gemini rising and you have Gemini in the first house cusp, you are here to create a brand identity that leads with curiosity and shares its big message. If you have Gemini in the second house, you are here to create offerings and add value in your business around sharing information, speaking, and teaching of value. If you have Gemini at its home place of the third house, you have a superpowered third house marketing, like your marketing genius and guru, where you're creating a messaging that promotes and connects as well as teaches. If you have Gemini at the base of your chart on the fourth house, you are here because you need that security of being heard and understood. So you're building safe spaces and communities that provides understanding and listening. If you have Gemini on the fifth house, you are here to create pleasurable experiences that allow you to create in many different ways. There's not just one path to creation for you. If you have Gemini in the sixth house, you are here to create systems that enable you to be flexible and to go with the flow. So having a daily rigid system is not going to help you. You need a system that can scale, that can expand, that can contract. If you have Gemini in the seventh house, you are here to create partnerships with other curious seekers that enable both parties to share information. If you have Gemini in the eighth house, here is deep healing, your deep healing of your voice and others' voices. This is really going to add to your value and joint contributions. If you have Gemini in the ninth house, you are here to create opportunities that allow you to expand on your spiritual and philosophical adventures. And this expansion will tickle your intellect and your mind. If you have Gemini in the 10th house, your ultimate mission is to share messages and teachings from your professional expertise. If you have Gemini in the 11th house, you're here to build a community and platform that supports humanitarian efforts of understanding. And if you have Gemini in the 12th house, this is a deep spiritual place, spiritual understanding that allows for you to reform and retreat into this place of inner peace and truth. So now, what about those Gemini wounds? So if you have intersected Gemini, meaning you went through all of your cusp signs and you couldn't find Gemini on a house cusp, this means that Gemini is intercepted between Taurus and Cancer. It doesn't have a cusp line. And so for you, that understanding and mindset issues come from you embodying it first, from trusting your body in order to understand information. I've already talked about Gemini moon, and that's one of our karmic energies. So, Gemini moon, we have to understand the healing stories that have to come through, those family stories that maybe somebody in your family told you that it wasn't important to be smart or to be heard, especially if you have that Gemini moon. And to understand that Gemini moon means that you need, not want, but you need to feel understood and heard. Now, if you have Gemini Saturn, like me, this Saturn is our energy to turn doubt into mastery, from constraint to responsibility. So if you have Gemini and Saturn, this is about thought mastery, to master your mindset. And then we talked about Gemini and Chiron. These are the wounds that may never heal. Yet what we understand with Chiron is that these wounds that we never heal become valuable assets that we then are meant to share with others in our offerings. And so if you have Gemini and Chiron, your intellect and curiosity were wounded somehow where it wasn't safe to be smart. So what have you learned? What is the wisdom that you gained that enabled you to feel smart that now you can teach to others? And if you have Gemini South Node, also like me, I have my Gemini South Node and Saturn conjunct in my first house. What is that trying to tell me? Well, I'm not going to go into it there. I've thought a lot about that. But if you have Gemini South Node like me, we are moving into belief and morals, that's Sagittarius, and not getting stuck in just acquiring information. Okay, so I'm going to give you some insider knowledge here, some information that I normally reserve for my Astro brand clients, and this is how to find your brand voice. So first of all, you're going to need to look at your natal chart, and I want you to look at Mercury. Find Mercury in your chart, and the zodiac sign that Mercury has is how you perceive and understand information to express your message. So again, Mercury is the input and the output. And so when we're thinking about our brand voice, that is mostly the output, like how we are expressing ourselves. So Mercury's zodiac sign will give you the energy of how you are meant to express your message. I'll be sharing on social media the different Mercury and how it expresses itself. Now, if you look at your Mercury symbol and you have an RX next to it, that means that you were born during a Mercury retrograde. And so this Mercury retrograde that you have gives you this more in-depth, more inquisitive, more embodied. It's definitely this kind of slower input and output, but making it slower doesn't mean that it's not thorough. It, in fact, is much more thorough in its ability to understand and express itself. So, number one, find your Mercury, find out what zodiac sign it's in. Number two, look at the house placement. So where is Mercury in your chart? Because this placement of Mercury is where in your business your information is most available and where you're best able to direct your message. Again, on social media, I'll be putting some cheat sheets so you can take a look at where Mercury is in your chart to where to direct your message. Now, two more things. The third thing that you want to look at is your third house cusp, because the third house cusp is where Gemini rules. And this might get a little technical for some of us, but bear with me. And so you look at the sign that is on your third house cusp, and this gives us insight as to what information, truth, and understanding we are meant to understand and share in our business. And then, of course, we look to Gemini on the house cusp. I covered that a little bit earlier. And this fourth element of Gemini on the cusp is where in your business you are meant to bring more clarity, understanding, dialogue, and to amplify your voice. So let me give you an example. So again, number one, where is your Mercury? My Mercury is in Pisces. And so for me with Pisces, it's very intangible, it's very spiritual, it's very imaginative and artistic. It is not logical at all. So I express my message using spirituality and I try to make it as easy as possible. Number two, then I look at where is Mercury placed. So Mercury for me is in my 10th house, in the place of public visibility and authority in my business. It is no wonder that I teach people how to express themselves in their own entrepreneurial journey in their business. So that's number two. Where is Mercury by the house? Number three, I look at the third house cusp. For me, my third house cusp is Leo. So I am meant to share information that is about creating confidence, creating joy, and always being creative. And I believe I'm doing that job. And lastly, which house has Gemini for me? My Gemini, I mentioned earlier, is rising. So it's my first house cusp. So where I am I meant to amplify my voice? I'm meant to amplify my voice in the place of self, leadership, and my personal brand. So when I put it all together about my aligned brand voice, I say, I am a messenger of spirituality and ease in the field of visibility, authority, and expertise in one's business. The voice of my message is confident, joyful, and creative. And I amplify my powerful voice in my self directed leadership and powerful personal brand. So if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, or you know me on social media and other places, I hope that this feels pretty aligned as to what I offer. Again, I'll be sharing all of these tips because I know this got pretty technical. I'll be sharing these tips on social media, so make sure you're following me in my free Facebook group, The Savvy Luminary, or on Instagram at New Moon Creative Co. Okay, so I know that this was a big episode full of information, and I went in the shadow zone of Gemini by maybe tipping over into information overload. But you know what? Trust your gut. Trust that you got all the information that you needed, and see where you have Gemini in your chart by somewhere by house or planet, and find out how you're meant to use this energy to create understanding, to know your truth, and to express your big message in a concise way. And really then take this to that next level and stand up and activate others through your shared information. I hope that you're able to get some insight as to finding your aligned voice, and that you've seen that there are systemic ways that we have been taught to not trust our own understanding or our own intellect or our own voice. And so remember that this is all a gift, and with a gift comes great responsibility to use, appreciate, and share. What will you do with your Gemini energy? So remember, if you want to join me for a new moon ceremony to empower your powerful voice, please head over to The Savvy Luminary gemini.com/new moon and sign up for our Gemini new moon eclipse ceremony, where I'll be joined with Dr. Sweta Chawla. We'll be diving deep into uncovering the shadows that block us from finding our voice and planting the seeds to empower our brand voice. Thank you again for joining me today on this chock full, information loaded episode about Gemini. And remember, your voice is powerful. Remember, your message matters. All right, everybody. Until soon. Thank you. The greatest thing that you could do to me to pass things forward is to head over to Apple iTunes and leave a rating and review for this podcast. Let others know what you think, and each rating and review helps this podcast be more visible to listeners like you.